Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience presented by Underdog. We went so long with the pick show for the century, we decided to split it up into two videos. One podcast, two videos. So on the audio, it's all a part of one show. But I'm talking to Eric Polzin from 9to5sports.com about best ball strategy, some different methods to go through beyond what I've talked about already. And then we do a live draft, and then we evaluate where we went wrong with our team because we did make one or two mistakes with the team that we really should have caught in real time. So please smash the like, sub to the channel, and use code MAYO at Underdog right now. All right? Let's go.
Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Okay, PGA Best Ball starts this week, Eric, at the Century. I think it locks like an hour before actual tee-offs, which is one of the nice things about Hawaii, that golf doesn't start at 6 a.m. It starts at, I don't know, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon or something, which is always very, very nice. So you'll have a little bit of extra time on Thursday to get yourself in. Again, code MAYO gets you the deposit bonus of up to $1,000 if you're new at Underdog. Highly suggest that you go do that and you cut down, like I said, use the bonus money that you get out of that and just enter the scramble right now. $10 to play, $50,000 at first place, $500,000 in overall prizes. So you haven't dug as much into the best ball streets. I've been all over it. I have my strategy article out, pinned to my Twitter right now. It's in the newsletter. It's in the description. Everyone can go read it. But are there certain questions like about the nuances that you might have that like you just don't want to go research yourself? I might have an answer, and I have a few weird strategies I want to run by you.
So let me tell you my strategies from last year, and you tell me your thoughts on that, if that should still hold true this year. Okay, so really what I did I built out a whole model for it as well, is last year I really wanted to focus on round by round, maximizing the amount of starts I had per round. Didn't really care about the caliber of golfer that it was. And so what I would do is, let's say I had like 6 golfers in round 1 already drafted. What I would do is, let's say I'm on round 8 or so, per se. I would then try to draft a golfer that I knew would be playing in round 2 for the most part, would have a good likelihood of playing in round 2. And then I would keep doing that as the draft progressed. Now, obviously, it's not that big of a draft. That's kind of my biggest gripe about Underdog drafts in general. They're not big enough. Like, I wish they were bigger. I think there's a bigger edge that way. But that's kind of how I went about doing it. I didn't really target as many, really, and this I know was a mistake. I didn't target as many of the scoring, easy scoring events as I should have. That was definitely a mistake. At the same time, the biggest mistake I felt like I made was not having enough exposure to players that maybe I liked, but I should have been spreading out my exposure a little bit more.
Yeah.
And also,
that's what I'm following.
How much is it like now? Just the first pick? Like, how much does that matter? Like last year, it felt like Scotty was probably just the best option. Like in general, if you just didn't have him, it didn't work out for you. Like, is that still true this year or not?
I don't think so. I mean, we saw the best season since 2000, Tiger, on tour, which we're probably not going to see again, especially with Scheffler banged up. Like 9 wins is a lot of wins. But I just kind of equate it this way. Like, you have to break it down into raw scoring. So birdies matter the most. Finishing position doesn't mean anything at any of these tournaments. So like when Scotty won Bay Hill last year and even the Masters, like he scored as many points as the guy who came like 18th at the CJ Cup. Like, it didn't make a difference. Like, quality of field doesn't make a difference. Major doesn't make a difference. Like, the John Deere class, so I wrote it down. The tournaments that scored the lowest last year and the most fantasy points, the Century, this tournament, American Express 2 weeks from now, where Xander's playing, Scotty's playing, like you have some big names. So I've been going out of my way to target players like at the high end. Like Cantlay is someone I'm actually taking a lot of now, and why I still think that Xander is the first overall pick, mainly because they're playing in that tournament. Like if I'm going to get my major starts, my elevated event starts, at least sign me up knowing that they get 2 of the easiest tournaments of the year, whereas like Rory doesn't get any of them. Rory is undraftable in this league.
I would agree with that. And there's kind of a lot of big name golfers that are almost borderline undraftable. He's one of them. Obviously, all the live golfers, we know that. So is your strategy basically just trying to load up on a lot of golfers that are playing like this week because they get a little bit of a head start, per se, compared to some of the other golfers that maybe will end up playing in the John Deere 3M Open, those type of events where maybe we could double dip that, but you're just trying to maximize your kind of advancing lineups?
Yeah, I'm trying to maximize round one. Just get myself on. But with the players that I'm looking for overall are what I consider to be the unicorn players, the ones that have status for the signature events and have gotten into the majors and are playing in the Century, but will also play in some of the other tournaments. Like, you're not going to see Scotty pop up at the Valspar. It's never happening. But Eric Cole might. And that's why he's going number one. Sung Jae Im might. Xander, weirdly enough, is actually a guy who does that from time to time. Like, he's playing the American Express. He does normally play the Valspar. The one weird thing to throw this all off is a lot of these guys have TGL commitments, which might make them play fewer of the Jabroni events.
Yeah, that's another variable, the TGL, which I'm personally excited for. It doesn't seem like a lot of people are, but that is another variable. And obviously, I don't think we have to worry about as many live golfers potentially leaving, but Terrell Hatton last year, and that's really kind of what ended up sinking a lot of my lineups. I got a lot of Hatton early.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I don't think that we're going to see live sign. I mean, Finau is the only name that's getting floated around, but he's come out and said the past few years, he's like, I'm not leaving. It's like, stop talking about this.
Yeah, and he's kind of like a guy that I wouldn't think would go. He kind of just feels, sounds weird to say, but he feels like a PGA Tour player, whereas like everyone that has went to live has kind of felt like more of a guy that would leave for live. So I guess maybe like Cameron Young, he's been someone that's been rumored in the past, maybe having a down year last year. Maybe he ends up leaving, but that's obviously another variable. That's kind of why I was intentionally trying to wait longer. Also had some NFL draft sweats that were going on that I kind of just wanted to wait. And so like, again, today and tomorrow are going to be a pretty draft heavy days.
So Century, American Express were the two lowest scoring events of the year, -29 and -29. Both appear in round one. So if you can target those, you'll get a bunch of points and hopefully move on to maximize starts in those two events. And then in round four, the John Deere Classic was -28. The CJ Cup is in round three, -23. The Travelers, which is a signature event, appears at the beginning of round four. So if you were trying to correlate for round four, it's hard to do because some of the other events, like the Scottish Open, is in there. I believe that the Open Championship is in there. Detroit is in there. Weirdly enough, Taylor Pendrith becomes such a good pick in my mind based on my new strategy, which is the xenophobic strategy of all the Korean players play in the CJ Cup because they're all sponsored by the CJ Cup. And CJ, it's on their hat. So they all have to play in this weirdo, easy tournament in the middle of Texas. You can have the Texas corollary where the Texas guys simply play in the Texas events. Like Scotty will play in 2 of the 4 Texas events. Hell, he might play in 3 of the Texas events, depending on what his health is like at that moment, because he's loyal to that. Spieth becomes another amazing pick, and the Canadians become really good picks because they all play in the Canadian Open, an event that just other guys skip. And like it's weird to think about it in those terms, but you can churn extra starts out of, I mean, those aren't elite players, but Corey Connors I have ranked at number 4 overall because he'll play the Sony, he'll play the Valspar, and he'll play the Canadian Open, and he always plays Valero because he's won it twice. Like, those are 4 starts that you are getting, and he plays every major, he's playing every signature event that you're going to get over everyone else in the field and get those extra starts at these super easy events.
Yeah, and so that's you kind of I have Taylor Pendrith. That's a good pick there, I would say. Like, again, not doing many drafts just yet.
But Pendrith he's defending at CJ Cup, so he'll probably go back. He'll play the Canadian Open, and he plays the Rocket Mortgage every year, and he plays well at it. I don't know if he'll keep that on his schedule now that he's like a good status golfer, but he might.
But okay, so how much of like will maybe your first 4 picks, let's say, kind of going back to kind of what I did last year's, I don't think it was completely wrong, but I don't think it was completely right. Like, how much of it were, all right, I have 5 golfers at least, maybe let's say 4 golfers at least that I know are going to have probably 4 starts in round 1. Would you try to then kind of differentiate and then go a little bit more kind of random, trying to get more round 2, round 3 type of golfers, or no? Or are you just trying to chase the best events possible? That's all you're trying to do.
I'm trying to do, like, I've basically in my mind put golfers into different buckets. Like, I'm not even like, if I get Xander as the first pick, that's great. Like, I want to have a few studs on my team. That would be fantastic. But like, I'm looking at, like, right now, Connors round 2, Pendrith round 3. Like, I don't even care about having the highest, like, good golfers on my team. I just don't give a shit. I'm just trying to maximize the amount of events. And I need, because you can only start 6 guys per tournament, right? So you need to have at least 6 guys playing in Century. And then I've actually broken my team down to basically allocating 4 spots on my roster to guys that are not in this event, that I know that are going to play Sony. They're going to play Mexico. And they're just like, I love Daniel Berger and Michael Thorbjornsen, and my guy, Michael Kim, friend of the show, are 3 guys that I really, really like because I know they're going to play in those other events.
I saw that tweet, by the way. So let's get a Michael Kim W this year. That'd be pretty fun.
Michael Kim wins at Sony. We're going to the Masters. It's going to be awesome. It's on him too. That's what he said.
Yeah.
But like, if you can get them, to just even think about it, like Mexico is so tough to do. But Jake Knapp is probably going to go defend in Mexico, and that's the beginning of round 2. And he doesn't have status for every signature event, but he's in the Century. Like, he becomes a great pick in my mind.
Are we betting on Tony Finau to play in that event as well? But like that's the thing. The Mexico Open seems like such a key event, but it also seems so random. Like, is Nico going to be a player that plays in that event? If he is,
I put a list.
More?
I put a list to get. I think Nico's going like the 3rd round, because I think everyone is assuming that. So here are the ones that I have. I have the Century Mexico Open corollary. I don't think Finau plays in it. He's coming off an injury. Maybe he does. Maybe he gets paid to go. I don't know. Byron thinks that he is going to play, so he's been drafting a ton of Tony Finau. I just don't like to draft injured golfers. That tends to linger. So of the guys playing in the Century, the ones that I identified that are probably playing in Mexico, Knapp, Kazire, Harry Hall, who's probably like 60-40 to play at this point, Vegas, Riley, Mav McNeely, probably, Matt McCarty, Goddard almost for sure, Campos almost for sure, and Kevin Yu. Like, those guys, you probably get both Century, Mexico, and all the lesser events out of.
And do you feel like those are good draft picks then as well?
Yeah,
because of that?
I think that makes them great draft picks, yeah.
Okay. That gets me excited because that has been so far with the limited builds that I've done or drafts that I've done. Those are some of the players that I've been getting on. So that, like Kevin Yu, Nico, Vegas, we can go lower. Like, there's other golfers that Kazire is one of them. Harry Hall. Those are all golfers that I've gone into. So I think what you're saying is the adjustments that I made this year seem to be correct at least. But obviously, it's all about maximizing the amount of players you have each round.
And the whole thing with these guys, the one good thing about them, maybe do you think that Matt McNeely makes a jump this year and becomes like an actually good golfer, like not an elite guy, but on that like homo level? Because if he does, he's a shitty pick because then he'll stop playing in all these tournaments.
That's the biggest difference maker, really, just being on a golfer like that, and that's kind of the tough part. It's like, yeah, Maverick McNeely on paper right now could be a good play because he's been playing a lot of events. But if he does take that step, like the Max Homa step, if you will, not going to play in as many events. Or like 2 years ago, for example, Ricky Fowler played in a bunch of events because he had to. Then he had a really good year that year and then didn't play that much last year. And so that's kind of the difficult part. And it really is a guessing game. To me, what I want to be doing is I want to be finding golfers that will elevate their game that maybe did have a down year last year, that maybe do have to play more events this year and really just need to play better. Those are the players I want to be drafting, as well as those guys that we know are going to play a lot of events. So like an example that I saw already later on in drafts, like I like Andrew Putnam. I think he's a pretty good golfer. He should play a lot of events. If he does a little bit better this year, he could end up playing a little bit more events. Or on the flip side, if he plays bad this year, he will be playing a lot of those events that we would typically need later on in the best ball draft season. So
for me, I just want these guys to start in the tournaments. I don't want them to win. I kind of want them to come like 10th in these tournaments. That would be the optimal outcome for like Patton Kazire. I don't actually think is all that good. Obviously, he just won a tournament, so he's fine. He's won Sony before, but he's going to play Sony. He's playing the Century. He'll play Mexico. He plays every Texas event and usually plays pretty well in all those Texas events. And he'll play at the John Deere Classic. Like, you just need him not to come like top 5 in any of these tournaments. If he just came 13th every week, just so many guys are going to get to Mexico, and Byron Nelson and Valero, and have like 2 guys on their team who start. So it doesn't even matter if your guys are any good. You're just getting points on everyone.
Yeah, and like Patton Kazire, for example, is like going pretty late in drafts right now.
He's not going. He's not going in drafts. Like Vegas will play. Vegas will go to Mexico. Like any Spanish-speaking guy goes and plays in Mexico. Like they just do. Yeah. So Vegas ends up becoming a great pick, and he plays all the Texas events too. So he's a great pick. Like I've given up. I've done enough of the drafts. Like, oh man, I got Morikawa in the 6th round. Like when I'm in the 6th round, I don't give a shit about Morikawa anymore. You can have him. I'm gonna go with, like I said, Johnny Vegas or Goddard or you or one of those guys to try to maximize everything. Like Bridgman's another one I like, but there is one player who I think could fit all of this stuff and could be the worst pick or the best pick. Do you know who that guy is?
Is he playing this week or no?
He is not playing this week, no. And I don't know when he's going to play.
I hope he's not. I can't think off the Andrew Novak. Is he playing this week? That might sound dumb if he is, but is it Andrew Novak?
He is not. Right? Andrew Novak is a very good pick because he dominates resort court. That's Paul's guy, Novak Nation. Now, it's Jordan Spieth. Because Spieth plays all the Texas tournaments. He doesn't have status for the signature event. So he's going to have to pull a Ricky Fowler from 2 years ago and play some of these off-brand events, but he's still Jordan Spieth. So he'll get sponsors exemptions into the bigger tournaments that he's not in. If he decides his wrist is fine, which he says that it is, you might see him play a ton. Because I even think he's in the U.S. Open right now.
So is he going to be the biggest name player that you're like? That's what I'm curious about. Is like who is the biggest name player that you're going out of your way to like draft? Is it Jordan Spieth? You're just like trying to get as much of him as possible. Yeah. I mean, maybe not that, but going out of your way.
I've been trying to get as much Spieth and Jake Knapp as possible, but they go in like round 7 and 8, so it's not that big of a deal.
And that was a theme last year that I remember as well. Is there were a lot of players that probably shouldn't be going undrafted, shouldn't be going in the like later rounds that were. And kind of looking at right now, and that's kind of the nice part about doing it later is you don't have any like I don't feel like I have preconceived biases about players that I wanted to be on with the potential for them to, play more starts or really just with the name value. I'm kind of just eliminating that right now. And I feel like that could end up being successful where it seems like, I don't want to be misquoting you. It seems like you're getting there now, whereas maybe earlier on in the drafts, you were getting more name value.
Exactly. That was exactly what I was doing. And just, I hadn't thought about like before Byron got to me and really like, hey, here's how it actually works. Like, I mean, it's the same thing I do with everything. I like to jump into it, see if I can just, how does it work? How does the format work? Because I didn't do very many best ball drafts last year. I only started doing it at the majors. And my whole thing with the majors was like, hey, you got to take guys that are playing in the Masters and not the other ones. Because if you don't advance from the Masters, then you have no chance of winning because you're already out. So I kind of went in with that mindset the first time. But then I started when I started to learn about the groupings and then starting to think about maximizing starts, it really got me in the weeds of like, there's a lot of people who are going to draft teams that simply don't have players at the Sony Open. Like that's why you need your Hermans and your Henleys and why those guys are more valuable. JT Poston would be another one. Like, yeah, I think Thigala is a good pick because I think he might pick up Phoenix along the way too. But if he doesn't play Phoenix, he's not playing Sony. Like you might only get 3 tournaments out of the guy in round 1.
So the one player that's sticking out to me based off of what you said already as well, like Jordan Spieth style, isn't Tom Kim, isn't he in Texas or no? Am I remembering that wrong?
He lives in Texas and he is not playing. So he's still, I think, where do I have him ranked? Now I got to take a look at my rankings. I should probably know these off by heart. I have Tom Kim at number 7 in the rankings because he doesn't have signature event status either, but he has all of his major statuses. So he's going to he'll probably play Sony next week. He's playing in the American Express. He might have to play Phoenix because he's not playing in the other events. I don't think he'll play Mexico, but you're right. He'll probably play Honda. He'll probably play Valero and those types of tournaments just to get his starts to try to get back into the signature events.
Yeah. And so that falls with like the Jordan Spieth thought process to me. Like, I don't know, I've gotten him in every draft thus far. So I was kind of curious there. Who is it then on the top end? Like first round, is it just like Xander maybe is the one player you want to get and then you're just spreading it out? Or is there not a top end player that you really feel like you need to go out of your way to roster or draft? Because that's, to me, is honestly the most difficult part. I see the top end, like the first round, maybe Sanjay, maybe Xander. And then from there, I don't even see Colin Morikawa that much. Like, to me, that's the toughest part is like the first round, the ADP honestly just doesn't matter to me. And so like maybe besides those 3 players I mentioned, are you seeing that too? Or kind of, I'm like, to me, you do need to nail the first round. What has been kind of that process?
For me, I'm just trying to maximize the best players who play the most. So Xander, I have at number 1. Sungjae, I have at number 2. Connors, I have at number 3. Siwoo, I have at number 4. Eric Cole, I have at number 5. They're the best. And
I agree with Siwoo there as well.
Yeah, like Siwoo's going to play. Siwoo will play Sony. Siwoo, he's won both those tournaments before, but like he does his best work at those other tournaments.
Yeah, and so Are you trying to intentionally spread out your ownership there with those guys, or it's just it already is naturally happening with whatever draft position you get?
It happens with any draft position I get. Like the only chance you can have of getting Xander is having him at number 1. Scotty's really the weirdest one of the bunch because like where do you take Scotty now? Assuming he comes back for the American Express. Because if he does that, then you pick up a start on a lot of the top end guys anyway, and then you get Scotty Scheffler.
I honestly like, let's say he does miss out on 5 events for say, and he's like 100% good to go. Then maybe the 3rd round, but like that's the thing. Like I don't know. I once did puncture a hole in my hand. It was a butter knife. I was like prying a bagel open. I literally punctured my hand. That lasted for a good like 3 months in terms of it like kind of bothering me. And it's a little different thing. They said there's like glass shards in his hand, which is weird from a wine glass breaking. But like if that's something that bothers you a little bit, and like even around the greens or putting, like that could end up making this is kind of a weird way to phrase it, like a first place victory being a 7th place victory, being the difference of maybe a stroke here or there, which obviously can make a big difference. I feel like he's not that draftable with the name value that he has, with where he will go.
Yeah, I agree with you. My only thing is if he comes back and he actually is fine. I think that out of all of these top end guys that you can draft, you get the break on Scotty. If he comes back, he's fine. But you also have the potential that he'll play like I said, he's played 2 of the 4 Texas tournaments at least every year of his career. So he'll show up and he'll play Houston and he'll show up and play Colonial. He does that every year. And he had played the CJ Cup every year before last year. If he's missed out on starts somewhere along the way, that if you can get your team through round 1 with Scotty, and then all of a sudden he's just playing in a bunch of events that no one else is in easy tournaments, like that is a bonanza for fantasy points. But that's the risk. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Isn't he on kid number 2 now as well? I mean, I don't know. That could be the difference between maybe playing an event that he might typically try playing and maybe not. I could see that being a slight factor.
He's not a TGL guy. What happens? Okay, we've drawn the 5th pick in this draft. So that's probably going to be Siwoo Kim. But you're the guest. I will leave it to you to make the selections for us, with us drafting at 1-5 overall. So with 20 seconds to go before the draft starts, what do you think we should try to map out here in terms of what we want to do?
I mean, I do like Tom Kim. I like Siwoo Kim. I like Sunjam. Those would be obviously we're not going to get Xander. I would try to get one of those 3 probably. That'd be the approach I would want to go with there.
Yeah, I think this draft will go Xander, Cole, Sungjae would be my guess of where these guys end up drafting. Just that's what I've been seeing happening a ton so far. So that is, how do you get into a draft and not make a pick right away? Eric Cole goes first overall. There you go.
That's just, I don't know. That just seems crazy to me. It really does.
Like if he takes a step back at all in terms of his schedule, he is an awful pick. Scheffler goes number 2. Xander goes at 3. That's a good pick.
Mm-hmm. I think he should be going 1. I do.
I have Xander at 1 as well. So we're gonna get one of Sungjae, Tom Kim, or Siwoo. Connors is there as well.
Connors does play a lot of events, but he typically isn't like the biggest scorer. That's kind of my issue. Like he's fine. I like him. He's solid. He's kind of like I always call plays like shoulder shrug plays. He's kind of like the draft pick that you would end up on. Like you don't know who else to pick. You could pick him there, but
do you want to go Tom Kim here?
Yeah, I think I'd rather go Tom Kim. But then are you also trying to get to like Jordan as well there, like later on?
Yeah. So
are you pairing up?
Yeah. So let's go with Siwoo because he's playing. And then we could probably pick up Connors next. So because the problem becomes if you take Tom Kim, he doesn't get the century, and that has to alter your entire draft strategy to make sure that you get those starts. So Tom Kim and Davis Thompson just went. So we can have Morikawa, Ben Griffin, Ludwig, Connors, Akshay, Sahith, Grazerman, Hoagie. Hoagie's actually quite interesting too, I think. Rory, Dunlap. I love Dunlap as another guy who might play a ton. Do you want to go with Corey Connors here to get those starts?
Yeah, I'm fine with Corey Connors there. I think it's a safe pick. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I have way too much. I think I have like 90% Corey Connors. I basically get him in every single draft. And
so why draft him then? Why draft him? Like I do think we need to be spreading out the ownership there.
No, that is not the style of fantasy sports that I play, Eric. I like to go all in on everything and lose everything.
I had 89% of Josh Jacobs lineups advancing, And in the championship round, that really cost me. Let's put it that way. So
Yeah, but the difference being that in the NFL, all the players play every single week. But that's
True,
not what we're drafting here. Even if Connor shows up and he's like T48 at one of these tournaments, it's going to be worth like 50 points more. Like when I did the breakdown, like Dustin Johnson, for example, when he won the U.S. Open, the year that it was at Oakmont, where it is this year in 2016, he scored 98.5 total fantasy points that week, and he won the tournament. And I went and looked at the John Deere Classic from last year and took Rico Hui, who came T26, and he scored 38 more fantasy points than Dustin Johnson did by winning the U.S. Open.
I really actually want your thoughts on him because he is someone, if he wasn't injured, I see him going undrafted. I'm like, what is going on there? That's insane. Are you there? Like I don't, that seems strange to me.
With
that he's
Rico?
someone that really could elevate and play more.
I think
Rico.
I think Rico needs to be in that mix of guys that you draft in the last round for those other starts. Like I like Jacob Bridgman down there, but Thorbjornsen and Berger are the two best of those guys. And Michael Kim, because Michael Kim told me his schedule, so I'm just drafting him because I know where he's playing.
Yeah, that's fair. For now, though, their schedules actually, I think, do change a little bit more than they would like. Not too crazy, but.
So we're up now on the clock. Dunlap, Thigala, Bhatia, and Hoagie just went. Where would you like to go here? You got Mav, Finau, Ben-An, Thomas, Rye. We got 20 seconds to make a pick. Echeveria's here.
I actually like. I think Nico is if you're picking Eric Cole in the first round, why not Nico? Like it's kind of the same thought process there. I don't really
I
get
agree.
the values for like him, yeah, and Ben Griffin too. Like I don't like if those guys are going that high, Nico should be as well.
Well, Ben Griffin, I don't quite understand because he's not playing in Century. I think that hurts him.
Yeah.
So we're back up.
I agree.
Eckroat and Rye just go. Like
I do like Rye.
I think I'd rather take Pendrith at this spot.
I'm fine with Pendrith. I think that makes sense. I think he does have like some good scoring ability as in some of those easier events as well.
Yeah, we just need to get him those starts. So we're missing Mexico and Sony. Actually, we're actually not bad for Sony because Echeverria probably plays Sony, Connors probably plays Sony, and Siwoo plays Sony. So we're good there. Yep. CJ Cup, we have Siwoo with the Korean sponsorship. We have Pendrith. Maybe Echeverria plays that too. So we're good on that front. We need to start getting Mexico because Echeverria is the only guy who's really done that so far. So if we're trying to map everything out, maybe we don't have to leap towards Mexico as of yet in some of those other events, but I think that should be in the back of our mind right now. Like Matt McCarty might be one who plays in all those.
Do you think Gracerman will play in the Mexico?
I don't know if he's too good or not.
Too good?
I think he might be too good. Yeah. Is the weird thing. Like that's the hardest part about this is that guy just slightly too good. Like Matt McCarty, like Gracerman's in all the elevated events. He finished top 50, so he has no incentive to play any of those. McCarty's in Century, but he has no status really for the higher up stuff. He'll have to play his way in, so he might have to show up to all these things.
Do you know if off the top of your head, did Jaeger play in the Mexico Open last year? I don't remember.
I think that he did.
Because I feel like he could.
I like Jaeger too. Let's see. Jaeger, I should probably have this off the hand. Jaeger FedEx Cup standings, just to see if he's in all those elevated events. He finished 43, so he's in all the signature events. So there's no way he's going.
Okay. I feel like he traditionally played that event. I don't know. He finished third last year. And I feel like he was a player I drafted a bunch of last year because I thought he would play in the Mexico Open. But there's another player lower on, Justin Lauer, that I think could play in the Mexico Open that isn't really going drafted. Novak, one of those players. Maybe even Patrick Rogers.
Yeah, well, Rogers is going super high. Like I think you can get a Patrick Rogers type anywhere. Like you can get Justin Lauer for free at the end, or we can draft Patrick Rogers now, kind of thing.
Gotcha. I mean, I know you like Jordan Spieth. Was he drafted? I can't really see it on my screen.
No, he is. We can wait like 2 more rounds before we start thinking about him. That's why I like taking him. Mm-hmm. Like,
do you really care though about like ADP and stuff? Because like the way I've seen the board right now, there isn't like obviously you want to maximize your upside with your picks and everything draft wise. That's the whole point of it. But to me, seeing the board, it doesn't seem to be that crazy. And I think we're on the clock.
Yeah, we are. So we can take. I'm between Jake Knapp and Keith Mitchell, who is probably playing Mexico.
Oh, you love Jake Knapp trying to get the Mexico Open. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, we get Century, we get Mexico. We played well at Honda, and he'll have to play some more of these other events. So we're going to be back on the clock again. Like we could take Victor Hovland if we wanted to. Like all these guys are still there. I would be more
crazy, right? Yeah.
I don't think that Jaeger plays Mexico now because he's in some more of these events. Do you want to take Lauer?
I mean, there's also like Chan Kim you could play. Obviously, if Tony Finau played in that, I'd be fine with it. I like Lauer. I think he's fine. I think he's someone that'll play in the John Deere and 3M Open as well.
All right, there we go. 3M is 3M in this whole swing? I think we missed that.
Oh, I guess.
Yeah, because
I could be wrong.
Yeah, that's the week after the Open, so that's not there.
Okay.
That's the
Gotcha.
first event that they don't play with all this stuff.
They always move that, like JDC, 3M Open. Those are two events that I can go to, but they're always changing on the schedule, which kind of is annoying.
Yeah, it's not superb from that sense. Let's see here. I have Vegas and Jordan Spieth queued for us. We have 4 picks left. So when we take a look at the team right now, we have the Siege is in this draft. Shout out Siege. Hope he's not trying to box me for stealing his guys. Siwoo, Connors,
Watching.
Yeah, he's hacked into our Zoom. Let's see. So we have Siwoo, Connors, Echeverria, Pendrith, and Knapp, who are all playing in the Century and all playing other events. Like, that seems like the shittiest team of all time, but I think that we're doing the best right now.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, maximizing the amount of events play. Again, this is kind of weird. It goes back to the no cut events. It's like it needs to be a little bit ugly this week with the baseball drafts.
So we can have Vegas, Spieth. I put them into the queue. We can start piling up guys in the queue right now. Matt McCarty is still there. I think McCarty's really interesting because he gets this week, he'll get next week, and I can just see him playing a huge schedule.
Do you have a lot of him? Like who do you have the least of here? Like McCarty?
I probably have the least of McCarty. Yeah.
And yeah, I would say go him there. I think that makes a lot of sense. We don't know his schedule, but it should be a pretty decent amount of events.
All right, so let's get him in there. I'm good with fading Spieth because I've taken him in so many places. I actually like Thorbjornsen as the next guy up. Like, I feel like he's someone that will have to play in a lot of these easy events till at least midway through the season, but you get the upside that he might be awesome.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He's a player that I never feel like I have a good gauge on, so like I wouldn't talk you out of it.
All right, we'll go with him. And like, he's supposed to be like a super rook, and he has all this status through it. So now we have some time to think about our last 2 picks and what we want to do. We can try to maximize with Vegas. Again, Texas tournaments, Mexico Open, and this week. I think that's very logical, and he'll probably play 3M and all those other events too. So I think that he's probably a must if he doesn't go. Like Wyndham Clark not being drafted, Zalatoris not being drafted. Nick Taylor is also super interesting because he doesn't have status in any of these things, but I think he's in a lot of the majors. It's just he sucks now.
Mm-hmm. But he is someone that could literally win a random event that no one will be on that week, and it's just like, oh, now you're in a lot of more events throughout the season. So it's just how many points will he give us on like easier scoring events if he even plays in those? That's like, I don't know. Would you rather go like Patrick Fishburne, Jacob Bridgman, like one of those players instead that could, give us a lot of starts later on in the season, but maybe not playing in the majors? That's obviously an issue there as well.
And honestly, I don't care about that. As long as I have 6 guys to play in the majors, I don't really care because it's not, unless we get the PGA Championship again from last year, just there's not that much fantasy points that are going to be scored. Like I feel more comfortable in this format punting off the majors rather than punting off the CJ Cup.
Yeah, and especially if they do play a little bit more difficult this year too, I could see that.
100%. Let's take Vegas. I think he makes sense here.
Okay, my one concern, I'm fine with it, is that we might be overvaluing the start of the season too much. But at the same time, you need your lambs to advance. Like, who else would we really have there that we could go with?
I have Vegas, Kevin Yu, and Bridgman as my guys right now. Now, I think that
I like all those.
I think the one thing about this lineup, which sucks, is that you're right, we don't have a ton of major equity here. Like, who could we could take Jason Day, who does generally play the CJ Cup.
18 events,
and
20 events.
And he'll play the majors.
I'm assuming here he went. Did Chris Kirk already go?
I don't know. I'm going to take Jason Day because we have 2 seconds left to pick. But
yep.
At least he fills up some of the categories. And he might play Honda. He's won there before. He has played the CJ Cup a few years in a row because I think that he's a CJ Cup like international brand ambassador. So like weird things like that do factor into it a little bit for me.
That's true. Yeah, that's the thing that we are like you're capping the amount of events he's going to play. It's going to be 18 to maybe 21 max. And some of those other younger guys might get 23, 22, 20, That's the only slight difference.
But I feel like we had just drafted. Our projection is so bad. It's the lowest projected team.
Yes.
But that I don't care about that. Like Noren may have been a better pick at that spot potentially because I think that he's in all the majors. Lowry, if you get him back here quickly for American Express, which I think he's done once in his career, could work. And Day will play the Farmers too. He always plays the Farmers, which is nice. But other than that, like Adam Scott is there. But Adam Scott and Akshay are playing in Dubai the 4th week of the year, which is the same week as the Farmers. So you might not see them on either side of that because they're traveling overseas. That becomes tough. You know who actually kind of fits your theory about player who might have to play a ton is Minwoo Lee, who's not in the signature events.
Wow. Yeah. Honestly, where's he going? He's going undrafted?
He's going undrafted by a lot, and I think that he's in every major because I think he's still inside the top 50 in the world. Yeah, he's number 49, so he qualified for at least the Masters to get in.
That kind of fits the Rory or Ricky mold from like 2 years ago, where he's a guy that has the talent. Maybe had a bad off year, needs to play a lot to qualify for events like Ricky did last year. And so I can see it. I actually don't mind that.
All right, so here's our team. Let's bring it up now. Sorry, Siege. You might be out projecting us, but we have the better team. So we went Siwoo at pick number 15 overall, into Corey Connors, into Echeverria, into Pendrith, Knapp, Lauer, McCarty, Thorbjornsen, Vegas, and Day. So the only 2 guys that we don't have playing this week at the Century are Thorbjornsen and Lauer. And we expect both those guys to play in Mexico. We expect McCarty to play in Mexico, Knapp to play in Mexico, Echeverria to play in Mexico, and Vegas to play in Mexico. That would give us a full 6 guys for Mexico, which almost no one we're drafting against will have.
The only hesitance there is that because they're playing in the Mexico, what other events are they not going to play? Like what events are we missing out on maybe in the middle portion of the best ball season, which it's tough to say right now at this point. So
weirdly enough, I think that we're at bigger risk of not worrying about that tournament and worrying about majors and signature events because we only have Siwoo, Connors, Pendrith as locks to play in signature and Day to play in signature events. Those 4 guys. I think Day's in it. Let's see. Jason. Yeah, if he's playing in Century, then he's almost most likely. Let's see. Jason Day, FedEx Cup standings. Where did he finish? He finished number 34. So, yes, he's in every signature event. So, to redo this, I would probably give up Vegas or McCarty for a slightly higher end player who is most definitely playing in all those events.
Would that be a Shane Lowry then trying to, get lucky with him not being, out early?
Well, to look at the guys who actually did make it into everything, Nick Taylor may have actually been the right pick for all this stuff because he finished, where did he finish in the FedEx Cup? No, he didn't. He finished outside the top 50, so he's not in all of them. So, yeah, it's just someone up above. Like when we took, I like the idea of taking Nico, but maybe instead of taking him, or even where Vegas was, what I kind of joked about Victor Hovland or Wyndham Clark still being around, that actually probably was the better pick at the time.
Yeah. And was Tagala still available at that point? I don't know, or Benny Ann maybe even?
No, Thigala went like 9th. Let's see. Thigala went in the 2nd round. 3rd round.
Oh, geez. Well, Nico went in the 3rd, right?
Yeah, we took Nico after, but you had Bhatia, Thigala, Dunlap, Hoagie, Nico to us.
That's why we went Nico. Gotcha.
Yeah, so let's see here. So at the Jake Knapp pick, I still don't mind that one. Lauer, like with Lauer, so maybe Lauer was because we can have a Lauer type. Like I don't see that much between Lauer and Bridgman, honestly. That instead of picking Lauer at 6'2", we probably could have waited on him anyway. It was just we were on the clock doing a show in real time. But instead of having Lauer, we could have had Denny, Harmon, Cam Young, Henley, Hovland, of those picks, and all those guys are playing the majors and the elevated events and might play some offshoot ones too. That's probably the spot where the pick could have came in, or we could have just went through that way and taken, like I said, Wyndham Clark, even Max Homa could have been like Wyndham Clark was probably the pick, him or Billy Horschel in that range probably ended up being the better choice.
But that's the thing. Like, let's say some of those guys that we're maybe regretting not getting to with the majors. Let's say they missed the cut, that's like 10 points that we're missing out on for some of those. That can add up to like 40 points for say, with multiple golfers like that. But you can make up for that with those other easier scoring events, like in 1.5 rounds, like 40 points in 1.5 rounds. Like it's not too crazy.
Yeah, the problem with us right now is that we don't have enough. We don't have 6 guaranteed guys for the signature events, and those are no cut events.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, the majors
for
I'm
sure.
not concerned about because we only have 5 guys, so we need to have one of. And playing in this tournament will certainly help if one of our guys plays well at Century or plays well at Sony. Then they will get into those events, and it's not going to be a problem. But we're going to need someone to be good in this format and play themselves into those tournaments.
Is Russell Henley one of those guys that would be in the signature events right now?
Yeah, he's in everything.
Okay, so I think that's a good kind of mid-range pick as well because he's playing this week. He might, I don't know if he's going to play next week.
He'll probably play next
He is
week.
a guy. Okay, so yeah, I think that's a kind of decent way to.
So this was the move right here. We should have taken Henley over Lauer in that spot at 6-2.
Yep.
And then it solves a lot of our problems. I do worry about the overall upside, but that's almost like we talked about in the DraftKings portion where we looked at it and we said, I don't feel comfortable with this lineup. I don't feel comfortable with this team, but I think we're closer to the right strategy with this team than taking some upside guys like Hovland or something.
Yeah, obviously it's hard to do it on a live stream there, but no, I like the thought process there a lot. The thing is, every draft's going to be a little bit different, so you always have to be like ready to pivot. Like obviously we weren't ready to pivot to Henley instead of like Lauer per se, but we know that someone like Lauer is going to be a player that we can go to in a pinch. That's kind of how I would go about the best ball drafts is have your certain list of players that you want to get to for, let's say, the first 3 rounds, have some players like on the back end where if you need to get some like value draft picks like Lauer per se, I think this is a good example. Jason Day and Lauer were, or whatever, those guys in the back end where, let's say you need more signature events, obviously Day, if you need more random events, someone like Lauer. Now that's just an example, but that'd be the approach that I go with. Obviously your draft is going to dictate what you do for the rest of it, but that really is the takeaway is that you need to be prepared to make the correct pivots. It's not all about drafting based off of the best picks. It's all about making the best picks based off of your current draft. It's like NFL teams, I guess, trying to, maybe they'll skip out on a great draft pick like quarterback and go with a better fit receiver. Yeah. I guess it'd be the opposite of that.
Yeah, like we already have a quarterback. We need, and we know that this guy's a generational talent, but we already have our guy. Let's draft the O-lineman instead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Exactly.
Eric Polzin, thanks for being on, man. It was fun.
Yeah, this was fun. Happy New Year as well.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you. Tell everyone about 9to5sports.com.
Yeah, so 9to5sports.com. I do a lot of fantasy golf stuff. I would say it's about 50% of fantasy golf stuff. Obviously excited to get into that. Lots of prop stuff, betting stuff there. I give out my weekly picks on a 9to5 write-up. Typically on Tuesday. I want to try to get that out a little bit earlier. I always do a video on Monday, kind of afternoon, just a basic breakdown of that week's tournament. There's so many options out there for content, podcast form. I try to keep it as short as possible, but still as informational as possible for the fantasy golf stuff. So check that out, guys. It's on 9to5 Golf YouTube channel. I also have my normal YouTube channel, which is just 9to5 Sports. That has become more of a props betting YouTube channel. So if you guys are interested in that, check that out. That's kind of the other side of 9to5sports.com. It's a lot of props betting stuff there. So if you guys are into Prize Picks Underdog, check that out as well. Give out a lot of free information for you guys.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me on the Pat Mayo Experience. Reminder to all of you to play in the Giant One and Done. I'm doing those giveaways. I've already told you about that. FantasyGolfChampionships.com. All this information is available in the description of the podcast and video if you're ever really looking for it. Code Mayo at Underdog to go play in these PGA Best Ball drafts if you don't have an account yet. Code Mayo. That's the important part. Code Mayo and FantasyNational.com/Mayo. Get you 20% off all of the tools, all the ownership, and you can change everything around. It has Underdog, DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo. It has everything on there along with the betting odds depending on the slate that you want to see. Okay? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!